these were lighthearted and nice and
Very, very.
fun.
Hello. It's car. No. Whoop. Zip. Right back we go. Hello. This is. Oh my god. You want to do it? I can't do it. Zzz.
Hello.
There it is.
This is Subspace Transmissions.
He's more confident.
The key is faking it till you make it, man. You always just sound like everything is great.
Yeah.
And then everyone believes you.
I'm glad that there's a difference between our confidence and podcaster voice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind not being a crazy popular podcast. You know,
Yeah.
We don't chase ads. We don't pay for ads. We don't do any of that stuff. We have a good listenership. We get fun emails. And
that said, though, if you want to give us things for free or advertise on this podcast, you let us know. We are happy to sell out to you, the brand.
Yeah, we'll find somebody that can be positive about your stuff.
Yeah.
And they'll talk about it in an ad-based format. But there's like a voice that you have to do if you want to be like one of the top 10 non-fiction podcasts.
Oh, you're talking about the Radiolab voice guy.
Radiolab voice guy with NPR timing.
Uh-huh.
And like we'd need some sort of musician.
Yep, you gotta have an in-house sound person so that they can have a bunch of little music cues every time you say something slightly dramatic, and then the story came out.
And then you take a 35-second pause while some music plays.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you're recording it, you could just keep talking.
And you could just cut the music in, but nope, you pause. I find that NPR cadence sometimes infuriating.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I hate so many of the things they produce.
It's funny too because the journalism side of it is decent to good many times. Like,
yeah,
sometimes it's light and not deep enough, or like you go, well, I wish you'd looked into something else here instead of this because there's really no story that you've finished here, or the story that you did is based on something that's incomplete or whatever. Anyway, not to bag on NPR, who has tons of money that we don't have.
I mean, I don't know. NPR is a good organization that tries to do good in a imperfect world.
Yeah, but man, that pause, the NPR pause is just.
It's a meme and a joke for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's, I think specifically that Radiolab guy is the one that infuriates me. I don't know that all the other ones do it.
The Serial podcast is really, really egregious about the dramatic pause for no reason. And the thing about it that I don't get, because I'm not a radio personality, and maybe you would agree, if you've reported this story, you've spent months researching and reporting it, wouldn't you be like, but get this is the crazy, and you'd be excited to tell people the crazy stuff you've learned, right?
Yeah.
I would not be, I would be stumbling over myself.
So part of that, two things going on there, right? Number one, NPR is actual radio, and there's like, people expect things about the way people talk on the radio, and which is dumb. Again, that's why podcasts are popular, is because everyone got sick of listening to, the transatlantic accent guy
we should
giving
do that.
you the radio.
Maybe that's our shtick. We don't do NPR voice. We don't do podcast voice. We get our transatlantic on.
Yeah. Extra. Time to learn about the newest goings on the Starship Enterprise.
Oh, God.
Please. I can't even keep that up for more than 2 seconds. It's
I
really
don't have
hard.
the stamina for it yet, but maybe I'll just start practicing, and next time we do it, we'll say, and now we're taking back to the Starship Discovery in the 32nd century. Oh, boy. Okay, well, that's enough bagging on NPR for today. That was a pretty good podcast. How do you feel? Done?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
All right. Hey, Star Trek.
So, yeah, Star Trek.
We are not talking about Discovery.
Nope.
We're so on brand.
This is the We Were Gamers podcast. We're sorry if you thought this was some kind of up to date, modern uh, podcast where we actually are on top of the latest trends or whatever.
Yeah. It's
We will
Discovery
watch
season
Discovery
3.
season 3,
Uh-huh.
but not today.
we
Maybe we
had
start
about
next month.
we had about as much time this month as was required to watch the short treks from season 2, and I'm really glad that's what we did because I got a lot on my plate before the end of the month. So
Yeah, there's a lot going on, man. It's
oh,
a crazy time of year. So we're gonna talk about some of the short treks.
all the short treks,
Uh,
some more than others.
all the ones that we have not watched to this point.
Yeah, I did rewatch that Picard short, even though you told me
Okay.
that it was the Picard short,
Uh-huh.
because I wanted to like watch it after having watched Picard,
Mhm.
and I was like, man, this short, after being really, really depressing, especially reading that Picard book and knowing how horribly those people died,
Mhm.
implies some sort of unity has happened that really, once you watch the show, you're like, man, people just turned on each other after this thing happened, and that this unity did not
Yeah.
occur.
I did not rewatch the Picard short, but
It's okay.
I remember that it ends. Again, it's 8 minutes. Like, what are you going to
Sure.
do here?
Yeah,
It's
no,
not like you
there's
get
and
the whole
most of the
plot.
point of it is the shock, right, to these
Right.
kids
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah. How their life is going to change, and
Right.
it is just that premise that Picard had. It really just makes me sad for what happened with Picard, given how good that premise could be. Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, oh, you could have this, this horrible tragedy, this horrible event, whether planned or unplanned or secret plot or whatever, and then they just end up like the Picard is like an empathetic guy. He can come in and help people understand and like come to resolutions. That nah, man, we're gonna have space
That
adventure
I,
and fight aliens and
I mean,
punch and shoot people all the time.
let's go back to last episode. You'd understand how Picard became who he is, who is not the Picard you expected to see on screen, if you got the info from the book. And that's the thing that, like, I get why they did what they did with Picard, which is jump the timeline ahead and shock you with a Picard that's not Picard. I wish, even if they had done that, because that's what they wanted to do, they had integrated filming some of the stuff in this book, because a lot of it takes on like Picard's waywardness as he has been on this mission to save the Romulan people, and the carpet gets pulled out from under him and he can't pick himself back up. You know what I mean? So that's enough about Picard. I think what we should do is do Q&A and Ask Not first.
Okay.
Because that directly deals with Discovery Season 2 and Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
And they're also very easy to talk about.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And they're the most simple ones. I expected more of these short treks to be about the Enterprise crew, Pike, Number One, and Spock than occurred. Were you the same, or was it just me?
I mean, I feel like last time we got one short trek that had like a main Discovery cast member.
Yes.
And all the rest were kind of just like new people, new things. Here you go, doing some stuff on the side. So I wasn't too surprised.
But the one,
so I guess by the fact that we got like main cast members in 3 of the 5 is pretty good.
That's true. Then. The one that we did get last season ended up making its way into the show.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
With Tilly,
this season. Completely unexplained and totally not really like, oh, this is Tilly's friend. Like, if you didn't see the short trek, you would have no idea who that girl was, why she showed up, how she could magically do all this stuff. Like,
yeah. I'm okay with it, but it definitely was probably very confusing for certain people that were not. I don't know. Everybody that watches Discovery is probably really into Star Trek at this point and probably watched it. So
yeah, fair. Discovery, I feel, got hammered pretty hard in the first season when it wasn't TNG again, and
Right.
people were like, I think at this point, if you're still watching Discovery, you have decided that you're gonna go along with whatever stuff they're up to.
Hey man, with
Um,
this time jump, I was like, I was gonna watch it, but like now I'm actually kind of interested to watch it. So anyway, let's start with the
I am, yeah. So want to do Q&A first then?
yeah. Let's do Q&A.
Okay,
I'll
and we'll do
recap it
Ask
here
Not.
real quick and then we'll talk about it. Ensign Spock beams
Yeah,
aboard
man.
the Enterprise with a smile on his face. He meets number one, and they get stuck in a turbo lift. And
Yep.
then
And
they
that's the thing.
right. So number one's premise for this episode is that she wants, because he's a science officer, to be pestered with questions until she's annoyed.
I assume this was like her. This is the glib line you give to the new recruit as you walk him to the bridge to show him the bridge, and
Mm-hmm.
then be like, "Okay, I'm leaving now. You could go to
Yes. Uh huh.
your job, so that these questions don't have to follow me anymore."
Right. Yeah.
This backfires tremendously
As they get stuck in a turbo
as
lift
they get
together.
stuck in a turbo lift together. Um,
The number one thing when he says, "I'm Ensign Spock," and then she says, "You can call me number one." That thing has become so conspicuous at this point.
yeah, man. Like she has a name. Come on.
But, or, I mean, it's just so conspicuous at this point. She's either an android or something else is up.
Yeah. They are having to bend themselves over backwards and
To
twist
not
into
give you a name.
pretzels
Yeah.
to not give you a name at this point.
Well, at the end of this, he says her name is Una.
Right.
Because they had created some sort of hybrid matrix for the replicator.
Right, yeah.
I don't know what that's about.
She invented something, and then they're like, oh, well, so
Okay.
it's the Una Matrix because she's number one, see?
Oh, I see. So shouldn't it be Uno or Una? What language is Una?
Bro, why are you asking me questions? I don't know how languages work. I want to talk about some of the questions they ask while they're stuck in the turbo lift because I thought a couple of them were interesting.
Okay, good. Because I kept one thing that I thought was fascinating, and the rest of them I forgot about.
You want to talk about the Prime Directive one? Is that the one that you kept or no?
No, actually, I kept something
Okay,
else. But let's talk about
so
the Prime Directive.
So Spock asked a question: do you think that the Prime Directive is morally indefensible, or something to that that effect? I think there is an argument to be made that the Prime Directive is morally indefensible and not actually the good thing that Starfleet says that it is.
What was her answer? Or was it one of the peppered questions that she didn't answer?
Oh, I think it was one of the peppered ones where then she was like, I like no. They weren't like, she rolls her eyes and like lays her head against the bulkhead or something.
Right. Yeah.
I think that Starfleet lays out, for being, talking about being humanitarian and being, this force for good and all these things. The Prime Directive is kind of a like, we have our toys and you can't have them kind of a mentality that you sort of have to use there.
Mm-hmm.
And the moral aspects of it are probably I think are probably pretty hard to square with the rest of the things that Starfleet wants you to do, like, and how they want their people to be.
We have a scientists on Earth have a somewhat tenuous version of the Prime Directive when dealing with indigenous populations on Earth. If you go to places in the Amazon, etc.
Sure.
It's a tough one because they embed themselves with these populations and they don't bring technology with them. They don't help them create new technology, but they don't hide technology, which is what the Prime Directive says to do.
And the Prime Directive specifically says not only hide it, like, you can't alter anything about what they do in any way because you might taint them or something.
So this is what I wonder about the Prime Directive a little bit. and maybe we need to do a deeper dive because I'm sure people have written books about this.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, I bet somewhere there's like an 800-page like
If you
philosophical treaty on this.
if you know of a good book on the Prime Directive, email podcast@wewergamers.com.
Yes, please. I would read this book.
I wonder if it's like modern law. Picture the Magna Carta and how simple the Magna Carta is, right? These are the rules for just kind of not being as bad as you are.
I mean,
Became an entire governing system in England, right?
I think the funny thing, the Magna Carta is a specific set of rules that apply to these like barons in England, right? It's like the king can't do these things to the barons,
right?
To these barons.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't protect people.
No, it does not.
It specifically doesn't protect people.
Nope, it doesn't.
But unless you are a baron, the Magna Carta doesn't help you at all.
But this is my point, right?
No, yeah, I know. I just think it's funny that there are people that think like the Magna Carta has like some kind of effect on their life. It gives them rights or something. Unless you are a baron, it gives you nothing. And in fact, even if you are a baron, these days most of the portions of the Magna Carta don't matter, and like they have been superseded by real laws.
Okay, so this is where I'm headed. The Magna Carta then would somewhat lay out as the beginning of a parliamentary governance.
It is the seed that then eventually grows into the tree, right?
So Archer creates the Prime Directive accidentally through saying we shouldn't mess too much around, all these planets that don't need us. His point when Archer kind of creates it, and I might be remembering it a little bit wrong because I haven't watched Enterprise in a long time, but he's credited with creating this Prime Directive because his interpretation of the first thing that Starfleet should do is more in line with the medical philosophy of do no harm. And so when he intercedes in the situation that creates the Prime Directive, he realizes that he has done harm by trying to intercede, where maybe if you took that and you waited 200-300 years, you end up with the Prime Directive we have, which is the Michael Crichton butterfly effect version of like, if you step on an ant on that planet, you are going to jail for the rest of your life. And you're like, whoa. Okay. I don't know if this is what Archer was talking about.
This isn't the intent here. And you bring up Enterprise, and it's a good, the stuff that happens in that show, right? Like there's the whole temporal Cold War stuff they get into, and like a whole bunch of things that like probably informed his opinions on this stuff, right?
Exactly.
Because he had all these crazy events and stuff that happened to him, and they were really the first ship out there,
Yeah.
It's interesting. I found that line interesting. That the writers would bring that up, which I know is a thing that people have said in the past, and have Spock say it is, who knows whether Spock believes it or not. I just think it's interesting.
I wonder if there's a Prime Directive still once we get to the future.
Is there a Starfleet or still?
Yeah, who knows? Probably. Might not be the same Starfleet. Might be more of an insular situation.
That could be.
I thought the fascinating thing was hearing about Pike from number 1. He said, "Give me the 3 most salient facts about Pike," and it was that he will always hear you out and generally will change his opinion. He's the most decorated fighting captain in the fleet, but he doesn't like to fight. And then the thing about he doesn't have like empathy for anything except for horses.
What was that the line? He doesn't have empathy. That's not.
It was it was something along the lines of he doesn't. He's not sentimental about anything except horses, basically.
Yeah, sentimental. Yeah.
Which I thought
the wrong word there.
The last part of that was fascinating because that means every captain of the Enterprise that we know of likes horses.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. We know Kirk does.
Yep.
We see him in several movies riding them.
Picard carries around a saddle for a whole episode.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure Archer talks about riding horses too.
and there are multiple episodes of Picard in the holodeck riding horses in the Wild West. Huh.
I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
Archer talks about riding horses with his
I
dad.
the Archer one is the only one I can't picture, but I know all the rest have for
I
sure.
know there's a Western episode
Okay. Do they
called.
go to a Western planet or something?
I know there's a Western episode, uh, because I think that's how you. Oh man, I can't remember which one it is.
It's okay.
There's a nine. He goes back to the cowboy times and rides a horse, and then
Okay.
Tucker and T'Pol ride a horse, and
Sure.
so I'm pretty sure that every captain of the Enterprise likes horses.
I mean, hey,
Which
maybe
is-
it's a job qualification. You
I
know?
mean, it's
Maybe
just
on the
fascinating. They
secret list.
stuck that in a short trek.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's a pretty not small piece of minutia.
I mean,
It's
whether
small
the guy
minutia.
likes horses or not is
I
small
know,
potatoes.
but I think it's fascinating.
It is.
That they
It
took
is
the time
fascinating.
to wait a minute. Everybody likes horses. All right.
Mhm.
Anything else on that one?
I mean, number one's thing is she apparently likes singing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So what was her point about that? If you want to be in command, you need to hide your weird
Yeah,
because
like
it freaks people out.
you have to keep your hobbies to yourself and kind of don't show your emotions and stuff.
Yeah.
I guess.
Do you like the way that turbo lifts work now?
Which way?
So the Kelvin timeline has bled two things back into the main timeline. And one of them comes up in another one we'll talk about later. But this is one of the two things that has come from the Kelvin timeline, which is that turbolifts exist in some gigantic empty space inside the ship.
Oh,
and
instead
run
of
on,
just being
run on
instead of-
rails all over the place.
instead of being elevators, you mean?
Yeah, and if you looked at old schematics of like the Enterprise D or whatever, there were definitely turbolift tubes, right? So that you could take them side to side in the ship as well as up and down.
Right,
But,
because
like-
the turbo, in order to get a lot of places, like in fact, most of the distance in the way the Enterprise is laid out would be sideways
Yeah.
because the saucer is very long in comparison with tall, so you would be moving sideways much more often than up and down.
Right. So they thought about that and they created sideways turbo lift tubes and all that sort of stuff. But, there was never any and this might have been a limitation of the time, you could argue. And if you want to argue with me, I'll hear it out. Them or you in terms of listeners. But this idea that these ships have gigantic amounts of empty space inside of them where all these whirling tubes are headed every direction and people that is blatantly a J.J. Abrams CG fest thing that happened in the Kelvin timeline that has now bled back over. And the ships are just not that big. And if you think about construction of a thing, you
You
wouldn't
don't
have
need
this gigantic
space
empty
like that.
space.
By the way, all of that empty space would have to be pressurized because
Right.
air and stuff would just
Yeah.
leave. Otherwise, it makes no sense. And I agree with you. I have a lot of criticisms about current Star Trek and the people who run it, and I think that is one of them, and that they are very willing to sacrifice almost anything to get spectacle.
Yeah.
And
That was our big
this is a-
complaint at the end of last season.
Yeah,
Discovery.
and this is another case, right, where even in the short treks, they are willing to sacrifice engineering and any kind of scientific sense to be like, yeah, look at this cool turbo lift shaft.
It's not Battlestar Galactica, and it doesn't have to
No.
be, right? There's sound and space in this. There's techno babble that gets people out of every bit of trouble.
Yeah,
Especially
look,
in TNG. But at least in those days, due to the limits of what they had to do with, they created a aesthetic of science
mhm.
and an aesthetic of engineering. Right? Go look at the TNG warp core. It's like a containment vessel that you would see inside a nuclear reactor almost, right? It's nothing
I mean,
crazy.
Yeah. they got their inspiration and were like, we're just doing this,
Yeah.
and it
And so,
worked.
like, if you had created a warp core now, or if you had let a J.J. Abrams warp core bleed over, it would be
I
some
mean,
sort of insanity.
when we get to Ask Not, let's talk about the warp core.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
um the final point about Q&A is that then, as they're getting out, she's like, if you tell anyone.
Yeah. 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 Pretty great.
uh,
She pretends she doesn't know him on the bridge. Pike
yep.
definitely catches on that she does know him on the bridge.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Do Vulcans feel awe? Yeah, we just don't show it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice little relationship that hopefully plays out the same way in the show they're putting together.
Mm-hmm. I think that's my hope, is that we get stuff like this Q&A episode as episodes of Brave, or is it Brave New Worlds? Strange New World?
New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds. Yeah, Brave New Worlds is a book.
And a video game.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's good on there. Ask Not. We'll just finish off all the Enterprise characters first.
Sure.
Kind of.
Yeah.
And then there's a nice little bridge episode with another. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sum it up.
Ask Not, a cadet.
Sadu.
Yes. Again, I did not catch her name.
Yeah, I don't think I looked it up. She's not a character outside of Short Trek. So.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah.
Well, not good, but like.
Well, she may end up
I'm
on
glad
Strange New Worlds or something, but she's not.
I'm glad that I did not miss her name. A vital character like Discovery.
Well, I just wanted to make sure she wasn't like a character we were supposed to have noticed on the Enterprise.
Yeah,
Discovery.
that was what I was trying to like find out.
Or like with the android the cyborg they had gotten rid of. Like, oh, the actress plays a different character now.
Yeah.
But no, she's just for this. She
did
a good job though.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one.
I didn't that much.
Okay,
but
it is very short.
Yeah.
So the cadet is in some N-type room in a starbase.
Yep.
We find out it's a starbase because someone says starbase.
Yeah,
they didn't tell us, which is confusing to me because I didn't know what ship they were on to start with. And it turned out they weren't.
Yeah, you're supposed to feel that way. You're supposed to feel like she feels, which is like completely cut off from information.
Yeah, well, that's the premise of the thing, right? Yeah. And so then two Starfleet dudes barge in carrying a third person with a mask on who
supposedly
is a prisoner.
People she knows, I would assume, because she takes orders from them. So
right. Well, as the cadet, also she's probably taking orders from literally anyone, right?
Sure.
Since they would be outranking her. But they're like, hey, this is a prisoner. There's been a mutiny or something. Something bad is going on. You are going to have to be in charge of this prisoner. Don't let him leave this room. Whatever he says, it doesn't matter. I'm going to give you this phaser. Can you do this? And she's like, And meanwhile, like, there's explosions and the room is rocking and it's crazy. And so, like, there definitely could be, she has reason to believe that crazy things could be going on, right?
Sure.
In the typical Star Trek fashion, the panel is exploding, and that's bad. They take the mask off, and it's Pike. Pike is the prisoner.
This is problem number one for me. Not problem, I guess, but like, this is immediately when I knew what was happening.
Oh yeah, okay.
When you're like, They tell her they don't want people to know that this guy turned, and that's why they're hiding him in there instead of the brig.
Yeah.
But then why would you take the thing off?
Right. Like, why not leave the mask on?
Right.
You could have just done that.
Because because I figured at this point and then was proven correct, he needs to talk to her.
Right.
Okay. Moving on.
And she's like, Captain Pike, like, what? What's going on? And they're like, he's turned traitor, and there's Enterprise is attacking this station or something, and like they're going on this whole thing, and they're like, okay, we're leaving you with this phaser, you keep him here. They leave, and it's just her and Pike's like, all right, great, now I'm in charge, so you cadet start doing things for me. And she's like, no.
And then they start quoting regulations at each other.
I think they spend 5 minutes of the 10-minute episode quoting regulations at
Yeah.
each other.
That was pretty funny.
Um, Pike gives a little talk about the Tholian attacking them, and they
What's
found this.
she
They
tried?
found this derelict ship that supposedly had been taken over, and an
Yeah.
admiral. And they give the whole like supposedly how this happened.
So
Um,
he's very specific about who attacked him and what's happening outside with the Tholians, right? Because her family was killed by Tholians
well, we learn later. Yes.
later. Yeah.
Yeah. So that though this Tholian ship was trying to take over the Enterprise. I wanted to go rescue this admiral and the crew, so I couldn't leave him there. So I countermanded the orders to leave, and I saved them. But then the admiral tried to relieve me of duty, and now I'm trying to get my ship back, and so I can get those Tholians, and I want to blow up their ship. It'll be great.
Yeah.
And she's like getting very confused and is just like wavering, and then is eventually like, all right, well, that's all well and good, sir, but like you need to sit down. I have the phaser.
Yeah.
You can't go anywhere. And then Pike's like, okay, turn on the lights, we're good. And like, haha, it was a Kobayashi Maru. And although that's not, I mean,
It was
Kobayashi Maru is an
winnable. She won.
unwinnable situation. It was winnable, right? It was an interview essentially.
Yes. Test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty garbage way to interview your candidates. I really think that Pike could have found better ways to do human resources than to traumatize people.
Number one took credit for that one, and I wonder they don't do that to everybody on the Enterprise.
This was going to be my question, Andrew.
Yeah.
How can you literally have a ship of thousands of people if you have to traumatize every single person in your job interview? Dude, it's going to take you 10 years to get staff.
So interestingly, she's still a cadet. She's not promoted to the Enterprise. She's doing a stint on the Enterprise as a cadet in engineering.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
it
wonder
sounds like-
if they just do it to the cadets that get assigned to the ship, which is really
Maybe. I mean,
like,
I guess there are a
still
lot. There
terrible.
must be a lot of cadets, right?
Yeah.
So I guess this is the Enterprise being one of the top posts or whatever. This must be the weeding out process to get the best cadets or something.
I think Picard would not do this.
No, I think Picard would say that doing this is immoral and wrong.
I think at the minimum he would say it would not give you the full measure of the person.
Agreed. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think it is a very Pike thing to do, though, in that
It bleeds
loves-
Pike and number
he
one.
he loves action. He
Yep.
loves seeing people under duress and knowing they're forged in the heat of battle kind of a
Yep.
thing.
Absolutely.
But Picard would ask you to write a treatise, a political treatise, and then argue about it and debate it with you,
Right.
and then discover that you were harboring secret sympathies for some kind of horrible political philosophy, and then tell you to leave.
Sure.
I
I think this was cute but forgettable.
Yeah.
In the long run.
Yeah. But I want to talk about the warp core though. So at the end, he's like, congratulations, you're gonna get stationed on the Enterprise with her husband, and everything is gonna be wonderful. And then he drops her off in engineering and says good luck, and then leaves. And you turn around and you see this picture of the warp core. Andrew, what the heck is this thing? It looks like, what this thing looks like? This thing looks like the Bat Cave from the 1960s Batman.
I was trying to find an old picture of the warp core from
the original series.
the original series, but I don't know that I can find one easily.
My limited 3 seconds of Googling here has failed me. So
yeah, it's not an easy thing to
they
find
don't
because
show they don't show it.
Well, so they show the
lot.
NX warp core, which is like a super old style warp core, which is more like a torpedo or like a submarine. You know what it looks like? An NX warp core looks like it looks like a submarine diesel engine.
Yeah, the big long thing with tubes coming out of it and stuff.
Yeah. There's the horrible warp cores from the Kelvin timeline. If you look up, okay, so here's the memory alpha link. I'm just gonna put it in Subspace for you.
Okay.
If you click down in the gallery, there is a picture of two of the Constitution ones. I remember the second one, which is the one that Scotty works on in the motion picture movie when all the people inside the warp core die.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is more. It looks more like a hadron collider.
Right. Like this is a big machine that has a bunch of stuff going on inside it. It doesn't look like the Star Trek warp core that you think of.
And then you have to get to the 1701A before you get to a warp core that looks like the warp cores we knew from Galaxy class and Intrepid class and all those other types of ships later on, where you can see the pulsing lights and all that. But I want to talk about the one where you can see Leonard Nimoy standing in front of a room. How are they going to marry what we saw in that short trek and this?
They don't.
They're just going to ignore it, aren't they?
Yeah, yes, they are. The picture actually right before the Leonard Nimoy one, though, is the thing from this short trek.
Yeah.
This thing looks like the giant thing in the Batcave in the 1960s Batman.
Right.
It looks like some giant metal structure for, I know, no one knows what reason that thing was in the Batcave.
Yeah.
This thing looks like that to me.
They really doubled down on these little robots on the Enterprise, because you can see them in this picture.
Mm-hmm.
The robots we've never seen before in Star Trek ever are everywhere now.
Once again, Andrew, the specter of CG just rears its head as they must have it always. We must have CG everywhere because it looks cool. Let's make a spectacle. Blah, blah, blah.
This looks more like a warp core than if you page back to 1 or 2, you can see the like Kelvin warp cores.
Right. And this one looks like a science project, like some kind of like big science experiment, which,
but these warp core rooms are not usually this big.
Yeah. So like, that's the other thing too, right? This is like, again, they love giant open spaces. You would never design something like this. It would all just be embedded in walls.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. This would be embedded in walls. You're right. You wouldn't have these giant, whatever these things are, pointed at it either.
I mean, maybe you need it because of the way the thing is or whatever, but similarly, the old warp core here with Kirk and Spock, is that Kirk? It looks like Kirk.
It's Kirk and Spock.
And the empty hallway.
Well,
you probably wouldn't design it like this either, unless that empty hallway is somehow integral to the idea of being a warp core, which we know it's not from one of the layers.
Well, unless what you're seeing here is the warp core is on both sides, and that hallway is some sort of access.
Yeah. Okay. Possible. Yeah, you might be right about that.
What? I'm sure that's not what they intended. But you could rewrite it to be that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see like any inkling of that in this warp core that they've shown here. So
no, yeah, this is
unless there's something down below that we can't see or whatever.
I'm sure they'll find a way to explain it, and then instead of explaining it, not do that.
Promptly forget about it. Yeah.
Yeah, promptly forget.
What a warp core! Wow.
Yeah.
At least it's closer than the
also
Kelvin ones.
These bent bars also are like, what is this, man? Why do this?
Yeah. Do you know how hard it is to bend pipe?
Dude, really hard.
Yeah.
I want to hope that these are cables and not pipes, but
there's just nothing
solid.
Tying them up. So
yeah, exactly.
Why would they bend like that?
Yeah, I know. It's so bad.
Straight runs of pipe are the best, please.
Yeah, don't do this. Okay. So this was this was a perfectly
nice
fine
aside.
Perfectly fine little trek here. Ask not.
Yeah.
Nothing. I have nothing bad to say about it really. Except that I don't like the way the warp core looks.
So either we go to the bridge episode, which is the Trouble with Edward, or we go straight to the animated ones and leave the Trouble with Edward for the end.
We can come back to Edward. I liked Edward. There's enough to. Edward is one of the longer ones, so
yeah.
We're talking about the original series. Let's talk about Ephraim and Dot.
Ephraim and Dot also has these robots we were just talking about in this warp core picture. Dot, I guess. Oh no, Ephraim. I don't know.
Ephraim being, I think, the
Ephraim being the robot.
The tardigrade.
Ephraim's the tardigrade. I would figure Dot is the tardigrade because Ephraim's a man's name and the tardigrade lays eggs.
All right, fair. I don't know. I didn't. I didn't think about it that hard.
So they took the
Um,
idea of a tardigrade from Discovery, they plopped it into the timeline of the original series.
and in fact, that literal picture we were looking at of Kirk and Spock in the hallway,
Yep. There's a
they
lot
visit
of
that hallway.
yes. There's a lot of it's so they say tardigrade eggs last years before they hatch. So Dot finds her way into the Enterprise warp core where it's warm because they like to lay their eggs where it's warm, even though she's going to lay them on an asteroid
In space.
in
Yeah, not
space,
really. Not warm.
and then lays her eggs in the Enterprise warp core
Hmm.
to be harassed off of the ship by Ephraim. Then at that point, which is the robot thing.
Hmm.
And then we get a fun, cool thing. I thought the whole episode was going to take place during Space Seed because that's the first scene you get as she's like looking in the windows is
Okay,
Khan at the
so
table.
right. So that was the other thing I wanted to point out is that there are so many references
Yeah.
to original series stuff going on.
Yeah.
It's a
It's
lot, man.
it's a very Wall-E or it's like Wall-E and Animaniacs put together in terms of its like nature, I think, this episode.
Mm,
Where it's kind of like silly hijinks, but also very cute in its hijinks.
yeah. Yeah,
And then we
there's
get
definitely a lot of like really cute moments.
it turns into kind of like an art film version of a time passing, where every time Dot gets a view into or around or of the ship, time has passed inside, and we're like watching different episodes of the original series.
Yeah, you see Kirk and Spock, interviewing the guy in the sick bay bed,
Yeah,
and
you see
um,
the fencing fight with
yeah,
Sulu.
the shirtless Sulu doing the
You
fencing thing. You
watch
see
the ship
the
get refit.
mm-hmm.
Turns into the not the A, but previous to A. Then all the fight with Khan, and then
Right.
the
I think
self
the end there
destruct.
is the self destruct from 6, right? At the end there.
No, the self destruct from 3
Oh, right. Yes, where they
because this is
because the bird of
yeah
prey is there.
bird of
Okay.
prey. Yeah, the bird of prey pops up, and then it's the self destruct from 3. And I love that transfer when we transferred into the refit version because that was like really really cool. And Ephraim and Dot fight for a while, and then the robot realizes there are tardigrade eggs, and before the self destruct goes off, saves the eggs.
Yep. There's a shot of Tribbles at one point.
Yeah, there are tribbles that come out of a panel.
Yep.
It's
About
a
that.
it's a experiential referencing of the original series, I think, is what you're looking
Yeah.
at here.
Yeah. Really cute. I felt like the way that it's animated and a lot of the effects and stuff, it almost felt like a Looney Tunes version of Star Trek.
Very much so, yeah. Like Looney Tunes, Animaniacs is kind of what I was saying. Like that
Yeah.
that style, but then it's heartfelt and cute, more like a Wall-E.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally light and easy
Oh
and
yeah.
fun.
If I was gonna show someone a short trek, that would probably be the first one.
Yeah, it is the easiest one to get into because it requires basically no knowledge, and you can absorb. You have probably absorbed through osmosis enough to figure out what they're referencing in
Yeah.
some cases.
You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of like a person with a budget doing those things that we used to watch for Star Trek, those like Carbot or not Star Trek, Starcraft, like those Carbot
Mm,
videos where like
hmm.
they're making fun and jokes and all that sort of stuff of the material, but like somebody was handed money and they were like, "Hey, go make a
Make a high
YouTube
budget one of these, please."
high budget YouTube video about Star Trek the original series."
Yeah,
Anyway,
I believe it.
it's cute. The girl who made the stars.
And
Was
this is
It was
oh, go ahead.
unexpected.
Yes, another animated short. It
Computer
was
animation this time.
Yes, computer animation this time. This one sort of took the place, or well, it literally takes place as a bedtime story that Michael's father is telling Michael,
Michael Burnham,
Michael Burnham. Yeah,
the Michael's original father, not Sarek.
Oh, right. Yes, her actual biological father.
They're at the place where her parents are eventually capped.
Hmm.
Because she references being all alone out there. They're in the
Right.
like space pod and whatever.
The scary place.
Yep.
And she has a nightmare, and her father tells her this bedtime story of a girl who saves her village by creating the stars.
He calls them the first people on Earth.
Yeah.
Tells them the first people were afraid of the dark because there were no stars. So.
Which again, First Peoples is like a specific like African reference to peoples that grew up in that area, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. Yeah, and so like there's no stars, and so they would never go out at night because there's a creature there and they don't want to anger the night creature.
Yep.
And so they lived in fear, and the girl decides to go anyway with her pet friend bug. Not clear. The bug kind of leaves. We sort of lose the bug.
She
at some
captures a
point.
firefly and uses it as a flashlight, kind of.
Yeah.
But then drops the egg.
Yeah, I was not clear what the thing. I was like, how did the firefly have the egg? She put it in there, but what? Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Odd.
like a lantern, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, and then a big light shines in the sky. She goes and investigates because she's curious. She was afraid because it was dark and scary,
Yeah.
but she was more curious than afraid.
Right. That's the lesson.
That's the lesson right there. They find an alien who gives her magic star dust or something.
So is this
and
the alien
creates
from
this-
Independence Day or what?
I don't know, kind of.
I've never seen this alien before. I don't think.
I mean, it's a fairy tale, so I don't know that it's meant to be, literal. I hope.
Well, you would think that it would be referential, at least in the alien.
It
But I
was
don't
not a
recognize
reference.
the alien off
It
the
was not.
top of my head.
It was not a reference to any kind of Star Trek alien I could think of.
Right.
And so she brings the stars back to her village and shows them that they don't need to be afraid of the night anymore, and that eventually she becomes the queen. The end. It was good.
Yeah.
It's very cute. Again, another very cute kind of like the other one, although it's a different style of animation. Very like a bedtime story, very like saccharine and cute little morality tale here.
I mean, it really looks like the aliens from Independence Day. It's got the octopus arms,
all
it's got
these
the
weird
head.
arms and face. Yeah. The thing that I noticed immediately was like, oh, are they going to comment on the fact that the alien is wearing like a suit, because
Yeah.
like clearly can't breathe our air or whatever. And,
Yeah.
nope, no comment on that stuff. Interesting.
Yeah.
It was again these last two animated ones were like even shorter than the other short treks.
Yeah. Well, animation takes a lot of time and money.
It's expensive, yes, I get it. Interesting. I enjoyed that one as well.
I did. Yeah. I would show that to kids.
Yes, it's very kid friendly. Both of
Yeah.
these last two.
Yeah. All right.
All
the
right.
big daddy of these episodes, in my opinion, is The Trouble with Edward.
H. John Benjamin.
Oh my God!
Is a
what
national
a reveal!
hero.
What a
national
reveal!
Hero.
What
Why
a
is this
reveal.
man not in everything?
Oh, what a treasure, man! I didn't know that he was in this, and I love it.
So great.
Before we start, this episode has the thing at the very beginning that I was going to say that comes from the Kelvin timeline that I do like is the new exit from warp. So like in the TNG days, you got the build up and then the pew, which is great.
Yeah, right.
It still kind of exists. It's just foreshortened now to be a little bit less build up, and you still get the pew. But now the exit, instead of it being the wind down and slow down thing, like it used to be, where you'd like come down from warp and sort of slow your way into space. The ships just sort of pop out and they're like, bang, I'm here.
Yeah.
Which is, I wonder what the stresses on the hull are for doing that. But it's very, is memorable. The way that it happens now, how they pop out of warp, that sound, pow.
It's
I kind of like it.
It's weird. It takes some getting used to because it sounds like they show up and it's like bang, like someone is like
Yeah, it's
punching
really
something or
good.
whatever.
It's really good. That bang sound is really good.
It's I don't know. I'm torn on it. I am torn on it.
Podcast wewergamers.com, weigh in.
Yes, please.
Maybe we'll do a
All
poll.
So
oh my god, this episode is so good.
So Pike, it starts with Pike and one of his officers, science officer maybe?
Yeah, she's played by Rosa Salazar, who's been in a lot of stuff. And
the
she's
actress
very
was
good
very
at her
familiar.
job. In this and in those things.
And Pike is wishing her well on her new job as captain. She's becoming captain of a science vessel, right?
Because she is an amazing scientist, and they need someone to take over this vessel who is an amazing scientist to lead a team of scientists to solve a food crisis near the Klingon border.
Right. There's some kind of food thing that they've been doing. And so she gets there and is having a staff meeting or talking with the team. And there's clearly an awkward dude there who's played by H. John Benjamin.
No, you gotta do the thing because they don't reveal him right away. She's doing a science roundtable and she's like, all right, so hydroponics, what have you been working on? And like this, what have you been working on? What have you been working? And then they slowly like pan across the table and there's H. John Benjamin just like
fidgeting and playing like he's like
I didn't know we were allowed to like share resources. I don't have any of my homework. What do you like?
Yeah, like the teacher, he has the look where like the teacher has called on him and he didn't realize something was due today.
So immediately becomes like, I'll tell you what my idea is for my homework, right? Like, basically immediately launches into tribbles, right?
Yeah, his thing is immediately like, hey, these things, we could use them and they breed really fast. We could
they don't.
Food.
No, they don't.
Oh, so initially they don't, right?
Yeah,
but he's like, but they're very dense. They could be used for food, but there's issues or whatever. And everyone's just kind of staring at him.
He talks about a tribble and he's like, it's like the most perfect animal for hunting because they don't move. They just they have no self-defense or anything. You could just walk up and kill them. Imagine H. John Benjamin describing all this stuff to you. He said one fell off of his desk and just died.
Yeah. It's like, actually, one fell off my desk and it died. And
yeah.
And meanwhile, everyone's just like staring at him like he's insane.
He's like, yeah, they'd be good protein. I mean, I've eaten a few, and then people are like, well, are they sentient? He's like, you mean like, are we worried about whether or not
their feet, like, are they going to escape? Like no.
I mean, I could make them brain damaged. He says I could make them brain damaged.
Brain damaged. Yeah. It's like, so we wouldn't feel bad. And they're like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And then he does say the only problem with them as being a protein source is they breed very slowly.
Right.
Really funny. That whole first scene is really, really funny. I had to pause it because I was like crying, laughing. It was so good.
Very, very funny.
Oh man, I'm thinking about it now and I'm already laughing. Oh.
And the captain like humors his little report at the end and is like, okay, like kind of pets him on the head and is like, we're gonna reassign you. Now you're gonna do this now. Work with these people. So
this line is so good.
Let's
the line is so good. She says, we're gonna put you in climate, like we're gonna put you in climatology. You worry you can help them out. And he's like, well, I'm a protein specialist. And she's just like, well, we're all scientists here. Maybe it's time to learn something.
We're going to learn. Yeah, we're going to learn something new. This is dumb.
Yeah. That's pretty good. Oh, man. So obviously he does not continue to work on climate. He works on tribbles again, while at the same time sending anonymous emails. Apparently, I would like to know how there's anonymous emails in that century, because
I would also like to know how he's submitting feedback like above her head.
Yeah,
basically.
But she calls him into his office and says that people have sent anonymous emails to her boss claiming that she is bad at her job and dumb.
Dumb. Dumb is the one I liked. It's like she's been bad at her job
And
or
then,
whatever. Okay, but then he's like, she's dumb.
and he latches onto that and says, "Do you think you're bad at your job?"
He's like, do you think you're dumb?
No, he doesn't say. He latches onto
Uh,
the job one. Oh my god, it's so good. It's the I've always loved his delivery. He's so good in animated shows, but like
yeah.
you'd think that he gets help from the animation, right? Like they can make it do anything they want, so they can give it more comedic timing. Like a lot of times in Archer pauses for a long amount of time thinking about what he's going to say and then says something really stupid. And you'd think, oh, well, that's just the animation. But like he has the same exact timing in person. It's just him.
It's just him.
Yeah.
It is really, really impressive listening to him and watching him act, because I think first off, he's playing like a really awkward guy, and so the delivery works because
Yes.
the guy is like clearly socially awkward
Of
and is
course.
being put in an awkward place and asked to do things he doesn't want to do.
They did the right thing with him too, where he doesn't quite look like he's comfortable in the uniform. It looks like it's pressing up on him.
They made it a little too tight around the midsection
Yeah.
and like stuff like that. It's not. It's very good, and he's always like on the defensive every time the captain shows up and asks him anything, and because of that, right, his natural delivery of this, like, I don't want to say stilted is the wrong word, but he has like a cadence, right,
Yeah.
that he speaks. It works because it sounds like someone who is nervous and doesn't understand what's going on, and like doesn't like all this new stuff that's going on around him. It's really, really good.
Yeah, even as Werner Herzog has that staccato that you've come to know, H. John Benjamin's. It was nice to know that is his natural rhythm and place, where like the animated version of him is him. It's not. They have not put extra timing on him, and that's cool.
Yeah. It's interesting because I always assumed that they had in Archer to make him speak like that, but I guess this is just how he talks. That's very interesting.
He sprays a tribble, which with what we find later is his own DNA. In order
you
to
really wonder. I mean, like, this dude, does he have ethics? Not clear.
Clearly not. Clearly not. Where that the minute he says he could brain damage one of them.
Sorry, it's so bad.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And so he's like, he's just like carrying on with his tribble experiments on the side in a underground illegal genetic modification experiments. And
good.
It
goes wrong.
It goes bad, and the tribbles start multiplying
everywhere, just
as they do.
Tribbles do.
And I wrote down this Johnny Appleseed song, LOL.
Really good.
It's just like people walking around with like vacuums and
they're trying to shoot them, they're trying to vacuum them, they're trying to blow them out into space, but they're coming out of every pipe and orifice and everything. I don't remember them being this prodigious in the other series. I thought they controlled their population in those. I don't know how.
I think in the other series they like keep them in deep storage, cryo storage.
Oh, that's right. They freeze them.
Yeah, and then they don't. And then the problem was once they got into the grains or whatever at that starbase, then the starbase just became overrun.
That's right. So that happens to this ship. They have no idea how to control them. The captain eventually loses control. This is when you find out that he has spliced them together with his own DNA, and they are then born pregnant.
Yeah. Which is a funny thing that they say about tribbles actually in the original series when you first meet them, right? Like in Trouble with Tribbles, they literally say, is like, as far as I can tell, Captain, they seem to be born pregnant.
Yeah. Pretty good.
So and then the captain's debrief at the end.
So they abandon ship first.
Yeah, they abandon ship, and the ship like explodes.
Well, with H. John Benjamin walking around the decaying ship with tribbles everywhere while he's petting a tribble. He's petting a tribble, and everyone's running away towards the escape pod, and he's just like, see, I'm a genius. I made this. I'm not dumb, you're dumb. She's like,
Yeah.
you wrote my boss and said I was dumb.
She's like, okay, closing the door. Let's go.
We gotta go, man. And then she closes
Leave him there.
the hatch as he gets overrun by tribbles.
Yes.
Yeah, and then
a wave of tribbles.
The captain's debrief is pretty good.
They're like, so you're saying you lost a ship?
Yeah. In the first days of your command.
Days of your command. What happened? She's like, he was an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a little nugget in there that the tribbles destroyed the ship, obviously. But then made it down to the planet, which they then had to evacuate because they overtook the planet, and then somehow made it off of the planet and into Klingon space, which is the other Easter egg of Worf hates tribbles.
And why they show up later in Trouble with Tribbles.
Yep. Pretty good.
Did you watch the commercial at the end?
No. Was there a commercial at the end?
Oh, Andrew. All right, hold on. Pause this podcast.
No, we'll do it live.
Okay. Just be careful of the sound.
Okay, I'll turn it down.
There is sound, and it is very good. You need to hear it. At the very end of this short is I can't tell if it's a fake commercial or a real commercial.
One would hope.
For Tribble cereal.
Oh, I see it. It's right here. Okay, when was this? Was it after the credits?
Yes, after the credits.
Was there any other? There are other things after the other episodes, right? Like
I looked. No,
there are none after any of the other ones. Okay, here we go. I'm watching the ad now. USS Ravenous Stardate breakfast.
Yeah.
Tribbles cereal. Okay, so it's like a. Oh no.
Yeah. They're pouring a box that just has little tiny tribbles in it, and then it just keeps pouring because they can't. The box is never empty, and it's just they're little furry things, and the kids are like, "Yum!" It's like they're hairy. Ew, gross.
Oh my god, there's a little one.
Mm-hmm.
The fur, it tickles, and then she sticks it in her mouth.
Yeah. Oh, so gross.
Oh, it's gross. It's my DNA.
Yep.
Destroy your replicator safety protocols and set it for tribbles.
Yeah, exactly. Like they don't let you make this thing because it's
spicy
horrible.
Ranch tribble cereal. Oh my god.
The flavors are so silly.
This is so disgusting. In the ad, the animation triples itself while you're watching it, like the little animated triple.
Yep.
Starts replicating.
Their little mascot is like one mascot and then two more pop up next to it.
Pretty good. Okay, wow. Well, they should have put that at the beginning or something because because I wouldn't have watched any of past the credits.
Yeah, it's good.
Man, that's good.
So you're welcome really for me showing you my
Thank you. I would have missed that. Oh my god, that was awesome. It's so disgusting.
They're hairy, dude. You can imagine. It's like the kids, like even in the commercial, are like, they're hairy. It's like, ew.
Gross. I think that the animateds are a standout because they're good in terms of just being standalone things.
Mm-hmm.
And the Trouble with Edward is by far the best. And they seem to have done the thing in reverse they did with Tilly. Tilly they set up for using later. This one they backed into like, hey, this is the time. If not now, when?
Yeah.
Would we ever have the ability to give Tribbles a backstory? So.
And like I appreciate this because this episode because it really was a like self-contained thing.
Yeah.
It didn't really affect, it sort of like told you the backstory of a thing that didn't need a backstory, but it was fun that they did it.
Yeah.
And the episode itself was good. There were funny parts. It wasn't like overly long and dramatic. Yeah. They didn't have like a bunch of horrible CG stuff all over it.
Nope.
They didn't, there was everything about this episode is what I want out of Star Trek.
Yeah.
Even the fact that there were jokes is good. And like, look, you don't have to get H. John Benjamin every time. I'm sure the man is very busy, but you can get guests and do a good job with them, and they make the whole thing better.
Next
Um,
Generation was funny often. Not every episode, but sometimes there were good jokes.
yeah, in a lot of cases, you're using Data or Geordi
Yeah.
or Riker, even in some cases, as the like comedic
Yep. Riker
straight man
often.
or
Yeah.
whatever, to give whoever Crusher or Deanna or whomever
Yep.
a funny line, and the story has to have some levity, and this one was clearly meant as a joke, but it was
Yeah.
good. It was good.
Very
I
good.
laughed a lot watching this.
Very, very good. And I'm glad it wasn't like a thing they did. Obviously, it wouldn't fit in Lower Decks because of the timeline, but like
Right.
I'm glad it wasn't one of the animated ones.
Yeah, yeah. This worked as a live action one,
I don't
and
think it would have
I'm
been as
glad they
funny
did.
animated. It would have been funny, but
It
like
would have still been funny, yeah,
the
but
awkwardness of real life H. John was very good.
yes.
Okay. Well, I think it's safe to say next episode we'll start talking about some Discovery.
Yeah, so Discovery season 3, I think there's like 4 or 5 episodes out as we
So
record this.
we'll do a batch as our first
So we'll do
episode.
we'll do the first several, maybe 3 or 4, I don't know,
Yeah, I don't know,
depending on
whatever we feel like doing. But that'll be the
however many
next
we
one
get through.
for our next Subspace transmission. If you have any stuff in the meantime,
Yeah, you can send that to podcast at wewergamers.com. Put
seriously,
Subspace
if there's a Prime
transmission.
Directive book, man.
We are serious. We will read that book and talk about it
Yeah.
because I am curious. And subscribe to this podcast and all the We Were Gamers podcasts wherever fine podcasts are distributed.
Yeah. We'll see you all when we pop out of warp next month. Mic check. I'm scooting up to my mic like I normally would be.
Oh, okay. No, that's good. I was looking at my weird. I don't know why my recording was not there. It works. Okay, great, good.
Yeah. Weird stuff happens in OBS all the time.
You know it, my man. I woke up this morning to an article from Defector about how to dejuice baseballs so there are less home runs and baseball is good again.
Yeah, that would be cool.
This guy interviews a PhD astrophysicist who works for like a sports company about like COR and a whole bunch of stuff that like he is dumb and doesn't understand, and it's very good. They're just talking like, hey, what if you like change the yarn or made the ball like a little bit thicker or all these things, like how does it affect it? And they're like explaining it. It's really good.
That's cool. Isn't it also about bats, or is it just about the ball?
I don't know. They're only talking about the ball here, so I don't know whether bats are also a problem.
Oh, I see.
Possible, certainly possible, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like the thing they're saying though is like, hey, physics is kind of like you can't beat physics in a lot of cases, and there's a like it is.
There's a certain amount of
Yeah.
Equal and opposite reaction that's always going to take place.
Well, that, but also like if you want to make the ball more dead and less, bouncy, right. So the thing that is the problem is when the bat hits the ball, right? The ball doesn't squish very much.
Sure.
That's the problem.
Uh-huh.
Or well, that's the thing that makes it, more energy, right? So you want less energy, so you want to make the ball squishier. So in order to do that, you have to change the materials of the ball, or the size of the ball, or like the height of the laces, or all these various things about which there are rules that MLB has set. It's not like
Right,
you
yeah.
can just do it unilaterally or whatever.
The balls used to be made by one person. Like not one person, but like one person's company or whatever.
Yeah. Apparently, all of the like interior of the ball and stuff is all made by machine now. I don't know why I thought at some point that all of it was done by hand. That's a dumb idea, of course. Like,
yeah,
they go through a lot of baseballs. There'd be like there'd be a lot of people just like sitting there furiously winding.
Maybe I'm thinking about footballs. Maybe because I know Rawlings makes baseballs.
They do, yeah, they do.
So maybe I'm thinking of footballs. Maybe all the footballs are made by one person. not one
Yeah,
person, but you know what I mean,
like one specific company
yeah,
or
one
whatever.
specific location at one place.
I mean, it's still possible they do that with baseballs also. It's just that they start way in
I don't know.
advance or
They've gotten to
something.
the point that like literally every other pitch, the
Well,
baseball is gone. So
that is one of the things they're talking about. Like, hey, MLB used to reuse the balls and stuff more.
meaning they'd
Uh,
get dinged up and bent and
yeah, yeah, and they're saying like, hey, if we did this, would that make you know uh, tears and all these sorts of things that would affect the drag on the ball and make it harder to hit home runs and stuff?
yeah.
And they're like, yeah, maybe.
It would also probably make the pitching harder.
Yeah. Anyway, it's an interesting article, and very long, and the PhD person is very patient with this idiot sports writer, which is nice.
Awesome. Are you a
Oh,
sub for them?
yeah, man. Yeah.
Ah,
I think is their content free? I don't know how much of their content is free because I pay for it. So
I don't know. I don't know.
yeah,
It looks like
I
it is. I mean,
yeah. Oh, okay. I didn't know. I can't tell how much of their stuff is free versus paid. Um, I pay for the lowest tier. It's like $70 a year or something.
that's cool. Well, hopefully they keep going. Seems like they have the right of it in terms of the I don't know what you want
They're
to. They have
the parent.
the pulse, right, of what people actually want to read about, kind of.
I think they're. I mean, I liked them before when they were at Deadspin, and what happened to that site is criminal in how good it was at doing stuff like this, and then they just kind of like threw it away. Um, but because they own this website now, they don't have to chase clicks like Deadspin always did.
Right, sure.
So there's less like dumb list kind of articles.
This
There are
is
still list articles, but it's because they wanted to write a list, not because like the lists are important
I
or
mean
like get
they
clicks or
have
whatever.
they have the idea of what journalism, quote unquote, as an industry, not as
Yeah.
direct journalism or whatever you want to call it, is going to be, which is small niche sites that are going to be sub based,
Mm-hmm.
not click based, right?
Yeah,
And
and
that's a bad thing in the long run, I think. But in the short term, it'll keep a lot of people their jobs.
I think I think I agree with you in the long run. Like if every website was required a subscription,
How
right?
many are you going to subscribe to?
Right,
How
and
many
it
different
eventually
perspectives will you hear, and what will your neighbors be reading? That's the
right. I
issue.
mean, yeah, in the larger sense, it becomes a problem. But for companies that can't compete at that scale, right? Like
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
it makes tons of sense.
Yep.
I also subscribe to a political blog, um, which is less expensive, but also produces like way less content. Um, and these are things that if they just launched a website or whatever, like they wouldn't get any ad traffic because no one would go there,
Right.
and no one would click on this stuff. But if people are paying them $50 a year, $70 a year, whatever, the $90 a year if you want to comment on their website, like the that's at least something. And
Yeah.
the subscription model gives them the freedom to say like, we don't want to run an article about this, like the hot topic of the blue dress today, like this, who cares, we don't need to do this.
Sure. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and then they don't, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay and good and nice that they get that choice instead of having to chase whatever the trends of the day are all the time.
Well, and it's nice that they can run articles like this one. Sports leagues have even stopped pretending to give,
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah. And they
because
like
if
are
they wrote this
merciless.
article, oh, whoa, yeah, but if they wrote this article at Deadspin, the people would be all over them because they'd be losing access, right? Like,
uh
oh, you can't
Des
write negative stuff about.
Deadspin didn't care about access. They didn't have any for the
Oh,
same
okay,
reasons, because they were critical of all the leaks.
okay. Well, if you were at
But
ESPN, you couldn't write this.
right, absolutely. And that is the major problem with every single person that works at ESPN, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't like as much as NFL, ESPN has all these NFL insiders and all these people who know stuff or whatever, like they all rely on access, and you therefore can't trust anything they say because they need to preserve the access. Like how you can tell if something is really bad is if Schefter tweets critically about something,
Yeah.
they must have screwed up really bad. Holy cow, man! It's like if Schefter is if the good boy Schefter got the approval to post something slightly negative, oh boy, they must have been in really bad shape. It's like, oh, they literally were determined to be actual Hitler. Like, okay, fine, you can post a slightly negative thing about them.
Did you see this article that Michael just sent before we get started right now?
Where what? Which one?
My Baby Yoda canceled amid accusations of genocide.
Dude, yes, so true. Thank you.
That's for later. I'll read that one. Did you watch that honest trailer we put up?
No, I clicked on it this morning also, and it's in my second tab after this baseball article.
All right. Well, after we're done, you need to watch it. It's pretty good, and it has your exact quote about we're not calling him the child.
Yeah, good.
It's pretty funny.
Oh,